Ladies and gentlemen, one thing is Slido. You know Slido? Slido is great. We love Slido. Slido is this is Slido, you know. No, actually, this is not Slido. This is the address of Slido. This is the World Wide Web, you all know? Yes? So funny. And Slido, and then you can ask your questions and you can vote questions. And this is the hashtag that you can use. But of course, we do also here analog questioning after the speeches. And we have a very, very interesting speaker right now, after this break. He started coding with 12. He was with 19 the owner of his first company. The Handelsblatt, which is a German newspaper, once titled, "He is a digitaler Überzeugungstäter." He's the founder of Sevenload, of Flip Life, and online CD editor, der Lebenslauf, that he sold then later on to Xing. He's the co-founder of the Bundesverband Deutsche Startups, and he is Germany's youngest provost. What a provost is, he will talk about this also in his 30 talk, what the MV in front of my P really means. Please welcome with a big round of applause, Thomas Bachem.
Thank you for the great intro. And thanks for being here and listening to what I have to say today. I want to talk a little about minimum viable products, about prototyping, and why iterating when you're founding or building a startup is so important. Regarding the provost, I'm actually the founder of Code University. You can see it here. It's a private university in Germany for software developers, designers, and product managers. And the provost, German, the Kanzler, is the nice job title you get when you found a university. But previously to that, I founded several other startups, and I'm also a coder myself for many, many years. So I really love to build products and to get my own hands dirty and tweak every little detail and really learn and improve products along the way. And I would try to give you some insights into my experience and my opinions on this topic. Let's see whether this works. Is it the green button? It doesn't. No worries. I know what the first slide says anyway. The first slide says that startups are experiments. And that's how I see it. So every startup is first and foremost an experiment built to testify, to test a certain assumption you have about an idea, about a product, about a business model that you want to validate and find out about whether it really works. And this mindset of a startup being an experiment is really important to have. Now let me see whether it works. Can't you just...
No, they search your...
Oh, my slides are gone.
Slides are
gone.
No problem.
No matter.
But
doesn't matter.
You continue.
They're really simple anyway. Because a startup is an organization that is built under conditions of extreme uncertainty and really tries to become a real organization, a working organization, only in the future, and isn't validated, hasn't a business model yet. So now slides would be really nice.
What is on the slide?
Yeah, I already talked about the first 3 slides.
What is on the fourth?
Yeah, I'm thinking what is on the fourth. That's the thing. No, but okay. I mean, if you don't find the slides, it's fine. But then let me just show me, then I talk freely. I think that what's really important when you try to come up with a startup idea is to really quickly build some sort of prototype. And because a prototype says more than 1,000 words. I had so many founders come to me and ask me for advice or for money, and they rarely had a prototype because, for example, they had excuses like, I'm so sorry, I'm not a coder, I cannot build my own prototype, I need money to hire an agency to build a prototype. But I think that you don't need to be a coder to create minimum viable products. You can come up with so many other tools and use, like there's a great amount of website builders, of homepage toolkits that can really help you to build a prototype website that you can test certain assumptions with. And that is so important, to not be too perfectionist. What happens to me quite often, because as a software developer I tend to be a perfectionist when creating products, but I think that it's super important to be as scrappy as possible, basically, and to really acknowledge that whatever you will build in the beginning, you will throw away at some point anyway. Because and that's not just product-wise, but also in terms of technology. You can always tell your coders, no matter how well you program your stuff right now, you will throw it away probably a year from now latest. So as a team, you should really focus on this mentality of trial and error, of building something, throwing it against the wall. If it doesn't work, just build something new. And that's what a minimum viable product for me really means. It's also, of course, a lot about data and experimenting and collecting data. So the earlier you get your product out there, the more data you can collect. And it's not just data, it's also to create a network of supporters, of partners, of investors, of customers. And let me address each of them individually, because all of them are really important. Customers is, oh, my slides. Yeah, no worries. I know I was late sending them. No, we talked about this. We talked about this, basically. I didn't talk about that yet. So many young founders think that their idea is something really special and needs to be protected. They want to be secretive about it. I had dozens of founders ask me to sign a non-disclosure agreement before they would pitch their idea to me. I obviously didn't sign anything, because how can I sign an NDA when I don't know what they tell me after that? But that's so important, that I think there's much more harm that comes from being secretive than that it helps you. Because of course, there are very rare cases where your idea on its own is so good that whenever it comes out, somebody will copy it right away. But most of the time it's about execution, it's about team, it's about you, because only you with your experience and your skill set, you individually or you as a team, are able to make this idea a reality. And I really always tended to go to as many people as I could find on conferences like this, and really tell them what I'm planning to do, so I could get their input. And funny story, I think some of the people I know from this audience will prove that true. I talked about building the university I founded right now for 12 years. And it's super funny, because all of the time there are people coming to me, wow, you told me about this 11 years ago, and now you did it. And it's really, I think it really helps to involve other people. So and now regarding the different groups of people you can reach with your first prototype, your minimum viable product, as soon as it's out there. One thing obviously is customers. Whenever possible, that your MVP already can attract users, perhaps customers, that's a great thing, obviously, because you can learn from them and especially from their data. But also, I think, stressing how important support in general is in the startup scene is really important to know. So I think the startup community is a really supportive community in general. So like we go on lots of conferences, we share lots of ideas, we help each other, be it with money, be it with advice, be it with connections. So that's what I mean when I say talk to people, because sometimes it's not the investor or the investor you're probably looking for that helps you a lot, but sometimes it's other people that give you some really great advice or connect you to a great person you will hire for your team. This is not to be underestimated, to also attract supporters with your MVP, because they see what you're doing, they know, for example, Tom is doing a university, so whenever I meet a professor, I can tell him, hey, look at this university. So so let people know what you do, your friends, your network, so they can help you. And that can be done with a great prototype. Also partners. I mean, it's not just always about customers or investors. It's also about partnerships, cooperations, like be it technology-wise, be it traffic-wise, marketing, whatever. Also for partners, obviously, it's super important to see what you're actually doing, and not just on paper, but as some sort of prototype. And investors, obviously, for me, it's always a very strong pitch when a founder really already has some kind of prototype. And actually, the scrappier the prototype is, the more impressed I usually am. For example, like if somebody comes to me with a pretty much unvalidated idea, but a really great working product, I'm a bit skeptical on whether they invested perhaps already too much time and effort and perhaps money to create this prototype before they came to me, or before they really tested their idea. So, but a founder that, for example, is not a software developer, but like came up with some really creative approach and shows me a really creative prototype, is much more impressive. We talked about this already, and it's totally true. Like at least for a product guy like me, like you can send me 30 slides and a link to a prototype, and I won't probably read the slides, or only if the prototype is good. So I don't know about you, but I always love trying things out first, because there's so many details in a product. It's hard to describe in words or on slides. And we talked about this already quite a lot. And about this as well. And this is really something developers and tech teams usually struggle a lot with. And I did too in my past, because as a developer, you always try to have a certain sense of perfectionism in your code and to make it really like sustainable and robust. But like it's really interesting as soon as you find a team of developers that share this mindset of, okay, let's experiment, let's be scrappy, let's just build something and glue it all together because we can rebuild it in a few months from now. It really improves your speed so much. It's always important to tell the developers, yeah, in a few months from now, you can build the right code base, you can build a real product, but now please let's be scrappy. Please let's do copy and paste, let's put it together as quickly as possible. And this is true for entrepreneurship in general, right? So to really try things out, and if you fail, you just repeat. And this is something that you really needs to be part of your mindset, and also when it comes to build your MVP. And I think the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, is so important. So like it's always you can achieve 80% of your product, of your minimum viable product, in 20% of the time, especially when you don't care too much for software quality and so on. But then you will lose a lot of time to make it, to perfect it. And that's totally fine, but in the beginning, you don't need to perfect it. You need to test your hypothesis, and that's what a minimum viable product can do, and not not the perfect code base. I've seen so many great startups and companies who had like the greatest products or code bases or whatever, like really qualitative stuff, but they never were successful in the market, and so at some point all of that went bankrupt and got thrown away. And I mean, like of course you're always adapting with this approach, but also like the teams I admire most, the startup founders, are the ones who really pivoted their whole business model. So there are quite a few astonishing stories out there also among the really big startups where founders started with a totally different product and approach. For example, Flickr, the photo platform, they were a game initially. And at some point they learned that the game wasn't going so well, but the users loved the photo upload functionality, and so they switched to become a photo platform. And there are many other cases where people have done these big shifts, and I think it's a really great sign that the founders are flexible enough, like in their minds, to do this, and are not like too much in love with their original idea when they realize that it doesn't work. So I have really a great, lot of respect for these teams who can achieve that and who learned from their experiments, from their minimum viable products. And super important is to do things that don't scale. I'm always telling this to my teams, like in the beginning. Please do things that don't scale. Sounds stupid in the beginning, right? Because like, why? I mean, a startup should scale at some point. Yes, but it opens so many new possibilities if you think specifically of things that don't scale. And don't scale means, for example, your first customers obviously get a different treatment than your 10,000 customer probably. So, but instead of saying, hey, we can't have 2-hour-long phone calls with our customers because that doesn't scale, screw it and do it because your first customers are really important. That's a very simple example, but also there's lots of stuff, for example, when software, when code doesn't work yet, that can be taken over by human work. For example, a great support team, a great user support team can really help to take a lot of workload from your software developers, because sometimes humans can do things like for some while that the code can't do yet. And there's so many things that you can come up with if you specifically think about stuff. Okay, I know we can't do this forever, but what can we do now to solve this problem, or now to find out about this? And like what happened to me in my first company sometimes is, as a founder, that I pretty quickly lost the touch point with the users, with the customers, because as a software developer, as CTO in my companies, I was at some point really focusing on the product, and the user support team and so on, that was a different department, different team. And and of course user support is also sometimes a lot of work. You get a lot of repeat questions and so on. But I learned to always come back to like talking to customers, to users myself, because it's so important to realize what issues they have. And I know it sounds super obvious, and perhaps it was just my issue, but like I need to keep reminding myself about this all the time, because like in daily business, I tended to not talk to customers anymore, because that was someone else's job. And and that's, I think, really dangerous, and you can learn a lot from talking to your real users and customers regularly. Let me give you some like really more concrete examples on what I did in the past, what I think has to do with these mindsets, these things. built online CV editor a few years ago called Lebenslauf.com, resume.com essentially. And it started all as a hobby project actually. So I had just sold my previous company, and I really wanted to go back to code more by myself again, because in my other companies I was mostly managing people. And then like a friend of mine asked me whether I could help her with her CV, you know, like converting it into a PDF, blah, blah, blah. You all had these issues once, I guess. And whether I could help, and I like didn't find the time, and so I looked out if there are great editors. There weren't, so I built Lebenslauf.com. And this was like actually sort of an MVP as well, because it was a hobby project of mine, not a company. And so I launched it pretty quickly, and it was just out there. It was for free. People could use it. I didn't basically talk about it. Like nearly nobody knew, but people started using it. And I launched it in, I think, end of 2011. And then like I worked on this sometimes on the weekends, but very rarely. And basically it laid around until the end of 2012. But it grew and grew, and it had thousands of users, because they recommended it to each other, like without me doing anything. And that's I think a first example of why it can help to launch a product, because I suddenly had a lot of users without doing much, because they liked the product, and that really showed me that I should continue working on this project, which I then did. And like at some point I said, okay, like it was a hobby, but let's try to see whether it can also be a business. And I started charging money for the PDF file you can download in the end with your CV. And then like I tested different price points, actually like from $1.99 to $7.99, like quite a lot for PDF file, right? But still I thought, okay, it's your CV, it's your job, it's your future career. It's a great opportunity. Like you don't do this so often, so why not invest a little bit of money into that? And then I started an A/B test with all of these prices. I used Google Analytics back then, which has A/B testing functionalities in there, and I really let it up for, I think, 2 or 3 months to have a lot of users go through that, and really looked, okay, which price point is the most attractive one for users. It was super interesting to see, like I learned in university, it's price pretty much correlates with how many people buy it. Pretty interesting to see, but there was a certain amount of money, and that was $5.99 actually, that really like was most attractive, was a bit more successful than the others. And also for me, when I go for $1.99, the transaction fees for the payment providers are a bit too high and stuff like that. But that was really something where I put in a lot of testing and learned from data. And then there's a crazy story. I'm allowed to talk about this on stages now, but back then it was also a bit risky, because at some point I started talking to Xing because we were interested in partnering, or they were actually interested in acquiring Lebenslauf.com to make it part of Xing. And we really struggled for months and months to negotiate like a price and the terms. And in the end, we came up with a model where we said, okay, there will be a bigger earn-out. So that means for me as a founder, I only get part of the money immediately, and I got more money for future success milestones. How many users we got using this tool, and then registering for Xing and so on. But still, for me, it was really hard to imagine. Like, the idea was that we make it free, like no more money to pay, but you have to register for Xing, for free. But still, you have to register. Basically, it's super simple, because all the data that Xing wants from you for your profile is already in your CV. And so we took it over. but you still needed to put in the check mark, yes, I accept the general terms and conditions, yes, I want to register for Xing. It was really hard for me to imagine, okay, how many people are gonna do this? Because for some time I got money from Xing for each user that did it. And so we struggled and struggled, and the negotiations nearly came to a halt because we couldn't find a price. And then at some Friday evening, before, on that day, I asked Xing, why not just test it? Can't we just, for a week or so, let's put the Xing registration on there, let's see how many people use it, then we know, then we can negotiate a deal, that's it. But Xing, I think back then said yeah, no, we don't want to test it, it's too much work, I don't know, no, we don't want to do this, let's agree now. And at this Friday evening, I said, fuck it, I'm gonna test it anyway, but without Xing. And I created this button, this fake button, and put in you can pay or you can register for Xing for free. And actually, I think I even improved on that. I totally removed the button and just put in this whole Xing registration process as if it was already working. And then when the users were clicking the link, they got an email there was a technical error with your Xing registration, but here's your CV. And I let this run for 2 or 3 days, which actually also cost me quite some money, I think a few €1,000, because the product already was so successful, because I didn't get any money for 2-3 days. But it was super successful, and before it was 18% of people that landed on this page, basically I created their CV, bought it, 18. And after the Xing registration, it was more 87% registered for Xing. And I was okay, let's do the deal. And renegotiated a little and struck the deal with Xing. And I think that it's a really successful deal for both sides, and Xing is still really happy with Lebenslauf.com, I think. It's these days they made it, they painted it green, so it looks more like Xing, no more wood look, but hey. No, but that's, I think, I hope that's at some point a bit inspirational for you, because that really helped me a lot to make this decision, to just, and what's special about this? Special about this is, I think, that I tricked the user essentially, because I acted as if there would be this Xing registration functionality, but actually it didn't work. But it didn't matter, I just wanted data. I did this at another point in the past, which I don't have on a slide. At some point I wanted to sell a certain product, e-commerce product online. But I didn't know whether there was enough demand for it. And so I launched a very simple prototype page where you could press, essentially you could fill in the whole order. And then at the end it said error, I don't know, or out of stock, so sorry. But I wanted to see, okay, how many people really fill in this form and really press the buy button. And then I collected some data. In the end it wasn't too successful, so I decided not to continue doing this. But it helped me a lot. I mean, imagine I would have ordered this product in thousands of numbers and then launched the whole website and then nobody bought it. So, sometimes be really scrappy if you want to learn. I think that's okay, yeah? As long as you don't do it for too long and you don't harm too many users by wasting their time entering data that you then throw away. But it's important that it's as close to the real thing as possible. I mean, only after filling out the form you know whether they really want it. Yeah. And then, perhaps, at the end, I told you about Code University, the university I founded, and we are an accredited, state-recognized University of Applied Sciences, Fachhochschule, here in Germany. And as you might imagine, that's also a lot of work, a lot of bureaucracy. You have to print hundreds of pages and write them before, and hand them to the Council of Science and get it accredited, and it's a long, long process. But also here, we try to build sort of a minimum viable product. Because first and foremost, we built a Code University in Berlin. And why? One of the reasons is because Berlin has sort of an iterative approach to recognizing universities, because they allowed us to first have a smaller accreditation, basically. It's called Konzeptprüfung. And then only after we're established now, and now we have the first students, and students are studying at our university, we have to do this whole program accreditation, which is a lot of work. And many other states in Germany say you have to do both before, and before that you cannot launch. And we didn't like that, so we said we really like the approach of Berlin, like start quickly, iterate, and then do it on the go. And I think it's really surprising that you can do this as something like an accredited university as well, but also there it's possible. And obviously we're learning so much from our students right now that we will probably do the program accreditation in a totally different way than we would have if we would have just done it on paper. Yeah, this is a picture of our first 88 students that started last October. And also, they are totally aware that what we're doing at Code University is also an experiment. Because we're really like trying to have a very new approach to education and to learning. We call it curiosity-driven education, which basically resembles the logo, curiosity-driven education. And it's a lot about project-based learning and stuff like that. And we try to be an accredited university on one hand, but on the other hand, be as different as possible from all universities in Germany. And this is very tricky, but still, like I think sometimes I told people I think I launched Code University at least a year, perhaps even 2 years earlier than every other sane person would have done. Because, like, of course, lots of things are scrappy at our university. I mean, we essentially prepared the whole university thing for 1.5 years with 3 people. But still, we're learning so much. It's like, as I said on all the slides, like we attracted so many new students for the future. We got the word out. We got so much press and media. We find great professors all the time. We find people who want to like donate money or support us in whatever way. And that's only possible because we're out there and because we're running. And it would not have been possible if I would still be like running around making big plans and planning to launch this university in 2 years from now. But I think especially with stuff like universities, people usually prepare it for years and years and years and years, and then at some point launch it when basically the market is somewhere totally else. They still go for their old idea. So just an idea that you can also do this with really traditional things like universities. And also at Code, our motto is learning is productive failing, because that's what we teach our students as well, to always iterate, to always fail if necessary, to learn. And we try to make that as productive as possible. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas Bachem. Very interesting insights, and I learned, and I have a new startup idea. You are the founder of virtual slides. It was great, like talking about a slide that is not there. Another great idea. Are there any questions in the audience? 2 or 3 minutes for questioning to Thomas. Now he is here. First question, please.
So my question is about the beginning for Code University. How did you find out what's really valuable month?
Yeah. So the question is like, how did I find out, especially for Code University, what's the viable part? So what do we need to do? Like where's the demand in the market? It's a good question because with the university it's actually a bit trickier to like to do a market study or something. We essentially we got the word out pretty quickly. So I basically went to the press and to the public in March 2016, so still nearly 1.5 years before we launched, and talked about, hey, we're gonna found this university. And as I said, I not only talked to people on conferences, I really got to the press and said, I'm gonna build this university, not I have built it. So it could have been, for example, that somebody stole my idea. But as I said, I believed in the importance of getting the word out as quickly as possible to find supporters. And then so many people came to us and said, I would love to study at such university, my children would love to study at such university. So the initial feedback we got along the way of building it really helped us already.
Great. 2 more questions?
Yeah, here.
Yeah?
Here.
Yes?
Do you hear me?
Oh yeah, just come a little closer, then we hear you better.
So how do you keep your students motivated and how do you keep them productive?
So the question is like how I keep students motivated and productive.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy because I think our whole study concept is actually centered around that, because we think without motivation, learning is learning stuff is wasted.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I learned so many things in my school life and in my university life, and I forgot nearly all of them after the tests. It's actually pretty sad, because I wasn't originally interested in them. What we try to create is an environment where students pick projects they want to work on. So first and most importantly, they actively decide that this is an area that interests them, and then the project really tries to show them like, yeah, what they learn the stuff for. So what's the result of the project? When will the project be successful? And the knowledge they need to solve this project, they then learn along the way. So we try basically to show them the goal, show them where they need to go, and then they can look themselves for the way to go there.
So it's also like an intrinsic motivation from them and they're passionate about it.
Super important to have passionate, intrinsic, motivated students. And it sounds obvious again, but in traditional universities, most of the time it's not like that. It's like, hey, you need to learn this, here's the theory, boom, 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 boom. Remember it, write a test, that's it. But you don't really get to know, okay, but what exactly do I need this knowledge for?
Thank you. Last question in the audience here.
What is the goal of the Code University in the future? So where do you want to go? More universities in Europe or Germany?
So the question is, what's the future of Code University? Like, do we want to expand, whatever? I don't know. No, I don't know, to be honest. Like right now we're in Berlin. We're pretty international, so we're fully English-speaking university, and we got like at least 50% of our applications are from all over the world, and I think this will increase even more. So Berlin is a really international city, so I don't think we need to go to other countries, actually, because I think Berlin is such a strong magnet that we can just wait for people to come to Berlin. Will we go to other German cities? Perhaps. We're talking to lots of cities about that, also to Munich.
Interesting.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, let's see. I mean, we're in the first year.
Great. Very last question.
So I was wondering if the students cope with this, the way you're doing it, because they probably come from regular high schools. Then again, I don't know, have you talked to any high schools that have the same approach? So the kids are used to going and doing things their own way, not being taught what they're supposed to.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is there are project-based schools out there, or schools with different learning approaches than traditional ones, and whether we connect to them, right? Yes, there are, but very few. Also, some of them have a sort of a stigma on them. I mean, if we're talking about stuff like Waldorfschulen, Montessori-Schulen, it's very like you really need to look deeper into it to find out whether they have a great concept or not. There are quite a few schools with different approaches out there, and we're also talking to them. But actually, the demand is so huge. Like, really interesting number is that 50% of our students are studied at another university already. So either they dropped out, or they like basically switched, or they have a degree already. And this is interesting because they became frustrated with the traditional system and then actively decided to come to us.
All right. Thank you very much. Thomas,
next time I talk about the university, right?
Yes, absolutely. Last question from my side. What would you do with $1,000?
$1,000, I would like party tonight.
Great. Excellent. Thomas,
do I get it?
No, if somebody had to invest. Thank you very much, Thomas Bachem.